Joan, is it true that the number of young people with mental disorders are increasing? And if that's the case, do we understand why it is?
Well, I'm going to hold my hand up here because in adults, this is the symbol for how many adults have a mental disorder. 1 in 4 or 1 in 5, depending on your survey. But a survey by NHS England, one of these online surveys in February and March of this year, showed that 1 in 6 children in England has a probable mental disorder. Now, this is the same as last year, 2020, but it's an increase from 1 in 9 4 years ago. So yes, there is an increase. And this year's survey, children reported problems with sleep and eating, feeling lonely, and admitted they were using more substances. Another interesting question in the survey was that they were asked about social media use. Over half of the adolescents, the 11 to 16-year-olds, said they spent more time on social media than they meant to. And researchers from the University of Essex described doom scrolling. Now, this isn't something I'd heard of before, and it's trolling through bad news. And they found that doing this, particularly through COVID news, for 2 minutes or more actually lowered these adolescents' mood. And we know already that social media can increase peer group pressure, and there's online bullying, and all of which leads to increased self-harm and eating disorders. I think it's important to think outside the pandemic. There's economic uncertainty. It's much harder than it used to be for young people to get on the career ladder. On the positive side, but going back to the hand, 10 years ago, the commonest reason for adults to be signed off sick from work was back pain, and now it's stress. So it's obvious that it's more acceptable to admit and report mental health problems. And I think moving on to children and young people, there is an increased awareness and diagnosis within children's services, paediatric services like yours, and educational services that look out for ADHD and autism, so that children's behaviour becomes more explicable. We do know that the International Classification of Diseases, this version 11 that goes online just in a couple of months, January next year, they've included new diagnoses, gambling and gaming and social media addiction. Again, COVID and the lack of structure for many young people didn't really help. School provides a structure. Young people became more isolated, more exposed, I think, to very difficult family dynamics, as shown by the increased calls to domestic violence helplines. And we all felt a lot of anxiety in the pandemic. What did we know about it? People we knew were ill. There were deaths of people that you might not know personally, but they're in the media, and lack of usual distractions. A colleague of mine who works in student health says that they've had increased demand there really since COVID. The other problem during the pandemic was that household circumstances worsened. Black British children have 3 times more likely to live in a household that had recently fallen behind with bills, rent, mortgages than white British group. And another disadvantaged group is those with special educational needs. At least 50% of them had less support during the pandemic, according to their parents, because of that very lack of structure.